Yes,
Okay.
but talk about, I want to capture this.
Okay.
Expect this to be.
Yeah. Okay. So when I'm working with my clients in my dharma and career readings, we often go into strategy and marketing, and they
Yeah.
ask me, okay, like what can I expect? And I'm very clear with them. I'm like, expect deep shadow work like you've never experienced before. If you think that you have been healing and working on that, just wait to dive deeper into that. It's not always easy. And so we were just
Yeah.
talking about how, I've said that
Success is
people.
not always easy, right?
Yeah, and some people have. I've had a lot of comments like, "Oh, you make it look so easy," and it's not always easy. I have a lot of crash outs. It's not being visible on social media, especially on TikTok with the algorithm. Anything can happen at any moment, and you just never know what to
Yeah.
expect, and so that's the scary part.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's all going to work out. It's not a neurosurgery. You're just becoming really popular. You're really good at what you are doing. Welcome, Madison, from the Feral Mystic, amazing, amazing astrologer that I found on our amazing social media.
Thank you.
We were just talking about it because you are so good at what you're doing and you're so popular and people want your services so much that there were like some backlogs in
Yeah.
Madison delivery of readings, and the a whole drama came out of it. But this is like amazing pain we talked about of being, having a success, right? Like, and
Oh
then
yeah.
becoming successful, and like the pains of that growth. It's not always like flowers and butterflies we talked about.
No, I've learned a lot of lessons. A lot of
Yeah.
lessons.
Yeah, I bet. I'm so excited to have you. I did a Dharma reading with you, which was fascinating, and we are talk about it in a minute about it. But I want to start with something that we chatted also about
Okay.
when we initially connected,
Okay.
which is that you initially worked on finances and now you are a very successful astrologer. So like, everybody can understand that this is like a 180 transition. And just like we talked a second ago, I think it's like such an important story to share, because I think a
Yeah.
lot of us also in the era of AI will have
Hmm.
to do these shifts, and like to
Yes.
do those shifts consciously, to do them from heart, from soul. I think your story is so amazing. So can you just tell us like how it went and how it started and how from finances you freaking are now such an amazing astrologer?
I think I have to backtrack this a little bit and just give some
Yeah.
context. So, and I've shared this with my platform a lot, but I was raised in Utah in the Mormon culture, and
Mhm.
I obviously had a lot of trauma surrounding that. And I think that I was living very unconsciously for a long period of time. And so my
Mhm.
father had been in finance for a long time. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just go into finance, which is interesting because I have a lot of ATOS placements. So I'm dealing with other people's money and resources. So it actually was like me kind of tapping
Oh.
in. Yeah, I was kind of tapping into that a bit, but I was very unhappy over a period of time. So I started at my company in 2018, and by 2020 I was introduced to astrology. And at that point I didn't know anything. I really didn't know anything. I knew that I was an Aquarius sun, but I had no idea what that meant. And I learned that I would be having my Saturn return, which is
Uh-huh.
currently happening. And that's when I understood I was very aware that I would lose my job. And at that time, it absolutely terrified me beyond
Oh.
belief because I was very, very attached to this job. I was very attached to this illusion of safety and security through a stable paycheck. I thought that with finance, I would be safe. And I worked there for 8 years, killing myself to get my licensing. And I'm going to be a lifer. I'm going to be a lifer. And
Yeah.
what you said is so important because I could start to see about like 5 years in, I could start to see things crumble. And I could understand that, and I understood at that time that AI was going to eventually take over the majority of my department. And
Yeah.
who knows? We also started to outsource work to other countries. And so I really started to feel this fire being lit under my ass, basically.
Yeah.
And I was also simultaneously, so all of 2020 up until, now, I was the psychopath that was at work asking everybody for their astrology information. And like I became a trainer at one point. So I was onboarding all of these new people. And I was like, it's just a rite of passage. Like, give me your birth data.
Oh, like a connection, right? Like a
Yeah.
team connection, kind of like yeah,
Well, it also, I think from my perspective as well, being a trainer at that point, I thought it was really valuable because it was helping me to understand how people learned. And
yeah.
being a trainer, I was teaching people very complex things, and I wanted them. uh, And it was like a one person, two person at a time. So it was really easy for me to try to figure out like, okay, how can I teach you this so that you understand it, and so it sits with you. And
Hmm.
what's really crazy about what happened to me, I had some events transpire well, in 2023, my grandmother passed, and that was a really pivotal moment for me. And so then I was introduced to the fourth wave philosophy and Advaita Vedanta. And that was the
Hmm.
most painful spiritual awakening, if you want to call it, I've ever experienced. And that was kind of the start of me realizing, like, ooh, I don't think I actually want to be in finance. I don't feel like I'm doing good for the world. I don't feel like I'm
It's
doing good
you.
for myself. Yeah. But at that time, I still wasn't believing that I would be an astrologer.
But you
So,
still, at the same time, you were like digging deeper into astrology, right? Like asking
oh,
people,
yeah.
learning about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was 2024 that I decided, and even at that point, I was not saying to myself, "Oh, I'm going to do this to be a professional astrologer," but I decided to take Chris Brennan's Hellenistic astrology course. And so that's when I like really was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm learning so much," and I kept applying that knowledge. And I was just like, "I'm just going to do this for fun because this is my passion." And it was 2025. Mind you, this was when Saturn was transiting over my ninth house of Pisces, where my MC is. And so I was assuming that by the time Saturn moved into Aries over my 10th house, that's when I would lose my job. But I was a bit wrong. I was a bit wrong on that. I actually lost my job. Not that I lost it, I consciously chose to walk away from it and
Yeah.
take the leap of faith because I just couldn't do it anymore. I went to go see a psychic, which is so funny to me because I'm now in the role of the psychic that I saw because most of my clients come to me and they're like, I have this intuition, but I need confirmation. I need some sort of like
Yeah.
confidence, right? So I went to the psychic because going back to being raised in the Mormon culture, anything outside of that, any form of spiritualism, occult like workings, was seen as very evil. So I
Wow.
had suppressed a lot of my own intuition, and I knew deep down that I was very intuitive, but I really struggled with that. And so I was like, okay, I'm losing my mind. I hate my life. I hate everything about my life. And all of 2025, I was actually in mental health treatment for some very serious things because I just felt like it was running off the rails. And so I went to
Mhm.
this psychic and she said to me, within a year, your life is going to be flipped upside down and you won't recognize it. And I was like, great,
Ah,
that's great. And still in that moment, I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, I know I'm not going to be in finance anymore, but I still couldn't see the
yeah.
path for some reason. So during this time, I'm doing a lot of spiritual work. I'm getting more downloads, and I was just like, you know what? I'll just get onto TikTok and start sharing. And
Yeah.
then people started asking me for readings, and I was like, oh, okay. Because I had already kind of built the confidence to be able to do a reading because I was doing it for other people for so many years.
Yeah.
And I opened up my books and I, I could not have prepared myself for what this ended up being, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
It turned out to be something so magical. And yeah,
Yeah.
I still am like, wow, I can't believe I went from finance to
I
astrology
know.
like this.
I know. And this is like something so fascinating. I just saw it when you said it. First of all, like you're so psychic. It's crazy. Like I can feel it. Like the minute I saw you on TikTok, I was like, oh my God, this girl is on the other level, on the other volume. Um, but what you're saying, because we were talking about this, you doing 180, but when you are talking about it now, I see how all the points, like you getting into astrology, doing it a little bit in finances, then taking the course, then like, life a little bit crashing. And it's just
Yeah.
like went like, maybe a little disheveled way, but it all was leading you to the place you are in now. So it wasn't really 180. It was just like a straight line with
Yeah.
like moment of disheveled that it almost like you had to acknowledge with yourself and make this decision, and you had to reconcile it for yourself this new way, right? It was already
Oh,
waiting
yeah.
for you, right?
Yeah, I did so much like deconditioning and what I call shedding because and this is what I was talking about where, success doesn't always look like a linear path and it's not always easy as what people make it seem like on social media. Um, I have had to deconstruct my attitude and my belief systems about money, how I feel about money, how I feel about making money, and going from a stable income, getting a check deposited into my account every 2 weeks, and then doing this. What's really crazy is within the first couple of months, I actually made more money in my entire salary, like my whole year. And
Wow.
it was absolutely shocking to me. And I, at the same time, had so many I can't even explain the feeling of that whole experience because it taught me that everything that I had felt and believed about safety was wrong. It was all an illusion. And I really started to understand that when I could start to see that AI was going to come into play and we were outsourcing,
Yeah.
jobs. I could see it at that moment. But I've had to really get really, really uncomfortable with money and visibility and working with people and conflict and confrontation. It's been a wild ride, but I'm starting to feel a little bit like much more confident in that. I think my Saturn return has really helped me with that. So
Yeah. Do you have any tips for like a shedding you were talking about? Like, let's say like anything like around money, like how did you do it? Or is there any tip or trick or method that you wanna and can share or helped you?
yeah.
Or was it like a sequence of a lot of different things?
Yeah. So I would say in the beginning, I really undercharged myself because I had some self-worth issues. And I wasn't fully aware of that until I started to see that I was having this really uncomfortable energetic exchange. And so I want to first say that money is 100% tied to the way that you feel about yourself and how you view your worth. So what's
Well,
really been interesting,
it is tied to it or it's not?
it
Sorry, because I
is.
couldn't. Okay, yeah,
Yeah, no.
yeah, that
It's
makes
very
sense.
much tied to to your self-worth and how you see yourself and how you see your value and your time and your energy. Because this is an energetic exchange. And so a lot of people in the spiritual community are really upset with this topic. And some people are really like, yeah, let's talk about it. And, as spiritual practitioners, it's really important that we price our work as valuable. Like we see it as valuable because it really is. We have years of experience, we have years of training for most of us. And,
Yeah,
if you go plug your information into AI, it's going to be wrong. You
yeah.
know what I'm saying? So it's valuable to come see a person. And so in the beginning, I was really struggling with this, but I made a ton of money, but I still was struggling to price myself right. And I will just say this, when you jump from being, in the corporate life or whatever it was that you were doing before and you start working for yourself,
Yeah,
there's going to be days where you don't make any money. And those are the
yeah.
moments where you're like, "Oh, am I on the right path? Is this something that I shouldn't be doing? What am I doing?"
Yeah,
And
because before that, you knew the check is coming, right? So there was
yes,
always that stability. So it was almost felt like every day you were making money because you were making
yes.
money for this check that came every 2 weeks, right? And now
Yeah.
when you don't have days like this, it's like, what the actual F?
Yeah, I'm finally at the place where, I can start to begin to trust, like, okay, if it's not happening now, it will come. But in the beginning, I was experiencing so much stress because for me, some people and most people don't have the ability to just like smoothly transition. It's really abrupt. And for me, again, I was saying in the beginning, like, I thought I had done a lot of shadow work. I was in a lot of mental health treatment. I had done a lot of personal work, worked with other mentors, worked with psychics, all these things.
Yeah,
Ooh, nothing could have prepared me for this. And what I noticed is my anxiety and my energy becoming restricted was reflecting in my money. So I would get really anxious and I would be on social media and I'd be like, "Oh, I've got to make more content. I got to make more content." And I finally was like at a breaking point and I was like, "Okay, I've just got to kind of take a step back and just kind of detach." And boom, those days that I do that, it's so weird. I'll get booked, I'll get, you know, people purchasing my
mhm.
things. It's so weird. So I will say
It's like
this
this
is
idea of detachment, right? Like
yeah,
detachment and trusting, like instead of coming from anxious place
yes.
and like a fear place, like coming from the place, this is the wisdom I have. I want to share it, and I know it will come back to you because I'm doing it from the right place, right? Like,
Yeah.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, and I think at this point too, like I've created a presence on social media, and that's kind of, the sacrifice that you make in doing content creation is your anonymity. And that's been really hard for me with somebody that has so many eighth house placements. I don't like being public. I don't like being forward facing, but we have to really push ourselves into uncomfortable spaces in order to grow.
mm-hmm.
And that has gotten a little bit easier for me. But, I think at this point, I have so many like amazing, wonderful people that support me. Like, I get so emotional thinking about it because, especially because like you were one of those people that when things started to, um, kind of go bad for me on social media and I was really starting to feel uncomfortable, like you had reached out to me and you had done something very kind for me. And I had so many people doing that for me. And it was just unbelievable. And I still think about it all the time. And it makes me just start to cry because I'm like, I can't believe that there are people that I've never met that care so much about me like this. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. And so
Yeah,
this is like,
all growing pains, all growing pains.
yeah,
But yeah, I love this idea that you're bringing of like, pushing us ourselves to these uncomfortable places because that's when growth and like
yeah,
meeting this shadow and meeting this barrier that holds you off to the from the next level from what you want is standing,
yeah.
right? Like it's almost like you are this is when you push through this barrier. And then just one thing before I forgot, before we start talking about Dharma, as you said that you went to psychic,
Yeah.
I'm just like so in awe, like coming from like a very religious background.
Yeah.
My background was very religious, but I think my home was slightly open to it, so it wasn't like a sin.
Hmm.
But I always say, like, like even dentists go to the dentist. Like, even if you are a
Yeah.
very psychic, like, dentist cannot fix his own teeth. Like, even if you are very psychic, like, there's this emotional connection to self, and it's sometimes
Yes.
really hard. Like, I have a hard time sometimes reading for myself. I have to
Yeah.
like detach myself from myself, almost because we are so obviously in our bodies emotionally involved in everything, and that's why sometimes we have to go to the other
Oh, yeah.
person, just like dentists go to the dentist. Okay, let's talk about Dharma because I love it.
Okay.
This is the reading we had, and it was just so amazing. Like, this is the part of astrology that I really love. It really helps you. It's obviously nothing, just like nothing in life. You can't just live 100% by it and just
Yeah.
make it your Bible, and like your every step is according to something, maybe astrology, right? Whatever it is, but it just helps you understand yourself better and get reassurance, especially in a moment of like uh
Oh, yeah.
not knowing what's next. I'm like in this moment of like still transition. It was just so amazing to have this Dharma reading with you and understand kind of my purpose and
Yes.
get reassurance on what I felt already. Actually, you're pushing me to some next level, and I was like, why is this coming through? But I'll try it, I'll follow it, and actually it's amazing. So yeah, so tell us about like what is this Dharma reading, like, and how can it help us from your perspective, and how it helps your clients.
Ah, I love that you said that because I also had another client recently reach out to me and they were like, um, yeah, at first I was like, oh, I don't know if that sounds right. And then the more that they sat with it, they really started to understand that was something that they were avoiding to grow.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
this kind of goes back to, the fear of money and jumping into entrepreneurship when you know that this is your dharma. And dharma basically means, how can we live out our righteous deeds? Why do we incarnate? Why do we come to the world and be of service to the world? And in my dharma and career readings, I look at what are called the dharmic houses and the wealth houses. So we can really figure out what did you come here to do and how can you make money doing it to support yourself. And that's so important to know because in those moments when I feel scared, when I feel uncomfortable, when I feel worried about my future, I know my chart very, very well. And I understand my dharma and I understand that I'm in alignment with that. So that's not going to be a problem for me. Yes, there may be some times where, I'm having blocks or I'm having issues with this, but if I stay in alignment with that, I'm going to be supported. And so what we do is we go through the dharmic houses, which include the first house, the fifth house, and the ninth house. And we're getting a good gauge of why you came here, what's your connection to source, the divine, God, whatever you want to call it, and what makes you feel ultimate joy. And then we go into the wealth houses where we're talking about, how do you make money? What's your attitude towards money? And this is really interesting because this is where we really start to get a little bit uncomfortable. And I'm not the practitioner. I'm not the astrologer that you can come to. And it's just going to be like, la, la, la. I'm going to hold your hand while we talk about the uncomfortable things because you're coming to me for a reason and I want you to succeed. I believe that there's abundance, infinite abundance, and we all have the ability to succeed and be successful in our own way, whatever that looks like for you. Maybe that doesn't look like you're making a ton of money, but you're actually just happy doing what you do. And then you get supported by doing that. So I think, and I just want to say too, this is, a Jyotish concept. It's related to Vedic astrology for the most part because the dharmic houses and the wealth houses, I have picked this up from their tradition. And what I love so much about this reading is that oftentimes there are empty houses that we go in and assess. And if you even if you're an intermediate astrologer or somebody that's pretty studied, we really overlook these empty houses because we're so focused on the planets and the placements. And so even people, when you were talking about a psychic has to go to a psychic, I actually get so many psychics. I get so many other astrologers that come to me because it's what you said, like I maybe am missing something that you can see.
Yeah.
And usually people, even that are a little bit more advanced, they always get something from my readings because we're looking at empty houses that they usually haven't touched before. So I wasn't expecting, and it's so funny because again, I was in finance and I was working with other people's money, and now I'm helping other people with their money, just in a different way.
In a different way.
Yeah, so it's so funny to me how this happened because I wasn't expecting it. And I will just say to anybody that is wanting to start a business, sometimes you just step into flow. And you step into flow and you understand that you're going to be kind of guided where you need to be. Maybe you can't see that. Maybe the room feels really dark and you can't see the path, but you just got to trust that if you're living in that alignment, it's going to take you where you need to be.
Yeah.
It's my favorite. I love it.
Yeah, and I loved it, when we did that, so many things came up. We talked about this podcast, right? Because of my placements and not placement, but houses and signs that align with these houses, how the communication and healing and teaching about healing is so important, and it's so aligned for me, and that's why the podcast feels so aligned. And you also and it was also what you said. It was kind of this reassurance. I somewhere know all of that.
Yeah.
That it's just this additional person, why Madison knows this about me and tells me this that I kind of know already. It must be true. You know what I mean? There's must be some. It's just such an interesting reading to, like you said, you go through these houses, and for those who don't know, empty house, it means that there's a house that there's no planet in it, right?
Yes.
So that's what it means. But it's just was such a good understanding to connect those dots. Again, I'm interested in astrology, obviously not close to a level you are, but I often look at my chart, and again, you came in and totally saw it, reassured me on so many things, but so also point out and showed me so many other things, me being comfortable with teaching and leading something, and I need to step into that, and I was like, oh my God, I know it somewhere, but what am I going to teach?